Hey everyone, this is Bridget, and today we're going to be talking about personal work and how to really develop on the spiritual path in our awakening as quickly and swiftly and easefully as possible, because there are so many freaking modalities out there and techniques, and it's like, whoa, and it can actually become so much that it's like, well, what do I focus on and how do I go about this? So that's what I wanted to help clarify and take you through today. So firstly, this awakening, this journey, this path is really powerful and it requires work, and people say like, you have to do the work or you have to do your personal work. And so I wanted to also talk a little bit about like what that actually means and how to go about it. And where to start is that these two things are intertwined. So this idea of the spiritual development and doing your personal work are actually very harmonious. Like they're necessary. They help each other. Okay. So that's the first place to start, is that there's the spiritual development side. So this you might be thinking of as like meditation, different healing modalities of all different kinds, right? Emotional, trauma, past life stuff. So there's many categories in which we can work on the spiritual or the energetic front. And in these kind of safe settings, what happens is we create certain neural pathways, we create new morphogenetic fields, new energy fields of balance, of harmony within us, so that we can meet the personal work in our lives with grace. So this is the concept of bringing both of these things together. Okay, so on the personal work side, like how does that connect in? So the personal work is being able to objectively witness yourself. So it's really easy to just become overwhelmed with me and my emotions and what's going on and energies outside and all this stuff. And one of the things that is required in this personal work category is to back up and look at ourselves and to be really honest. And this is actually incredibly caring to do for ourselves. It might seem vulnerable or like scary or almost like critical, but it actually is extremely kind, because when we can truly witness ourselves, then we can shift things to make things better, which is actually kind and from a space of self-love. So in this personal work category, what we're really wanting to do is look at the things that challenge us the most. So this is kind of like looking at our shadow, the shadow work stuff, but it's really inviting in and witnessing those things in our everyday life, relationships, career, triggers, those kinds of things that are challenging, and to really confront them and go into them. Now, when we do that, that is incredibly courageous, and we're going straight to the heart of the challenge, straight to the heart of the unhealed or the wounded aspects, which through that little gateway on the other side is wholeness, is more balance, which then intertwines into more spiritual development. So these things are intimately connected and necessary. And so this idea of doing, say, like the spiritual development work is key, because it's a practice. It's like, basketball practice. That's the first sport that came to me. It's like basketball practice, right? You have to practice. And then when you meet the game, which is this situation or circumstance in your life that is super triggering, you can meet it with all this practice and execute with more grace or neutrality, or with deeper understanding of yourself or the situation or the other person, which then brings it into healing and balance to then become more whole. So if you miss that key point, the key point is that in going towards and confronting those things in your life that are the most challenging and triggering, and executing them and going into them with courage, with the tools of spiritual development, is the fastest way to awakening, is the fastest way to the next level of your growth. And this is huge, because again, we can just kind of spin our wheels doing particular modalities or in finding certain information. But like you can go around that merry-go-round for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years and miss this thing right here that's super up that can lead to so much growth. This is like the glacier whole analogy where it's like once you can like identify that surface piece and really go into it, there's just this whole treasure chest of more of you that you can bring into wholeness, which is just quickly accelerating. Okay, this is the fastest way. And so as you've probably seen in some of my other videos that I talk about, like I dive into these things that are maybe my challenges, or I'm constantly pushing my edge. So it might not be something also that is, triggering or up or something like that. We can also get complacent, right? Or just kind of comfortable in our routine or our certain paradigms or our certain ways of being and expressing ourselves. And so pushing our edge is another great way on this personal work side to then see what is on the other side of that. And when you do this, by the way, this builds confidence. As you push, say, like an edge, for me, for instance, I constantly, so in every category of my life, every year, I put things, it's like throwing your hat over the fence and then going and eat, then you have to go get it. I put those things out there to push my edge to grow. So once you have kind of addressed a lot of the things that you don't want to address and you've worked through them with the tools of the spirituality, then you can start actually pushing it to go farther, right? You push the edge, which then builds this resilience, and it can also bring up new stuff to look at to then integrate and develop. So this is one of the fastest ways to really do our work. And when we do our work, we become healthy, happy, whole humans for ourselves and for others. So it's really wonderful. And why it's called work is because sometimes it isn't fun, right? Like in that process, it doesn't feel necessarily fun. And that's one of the things that we have to, redefine is that actually, challenge is interesting and exciting. So for me, like new experiences and pushing my edge or like confronting that is actually really exciting and fulfilling, and I really like it. But we have to get to that point where we can define it that way so that we can pursue it. And the thing is once you've had some successes at this and you followed through, and on the other side, say that person in that relationship actually listened to you, or you came to resolution, you closed certain like loops or changed your life in certain ways, it feels so good that you actually want to do more of it. And so then you move more into the unknown and the mystery with this new level of again, like confidence and understanding, which is super helpful. It's also called work because we have to work at it. And I guess like a better word that we've developed, in the spiritual category is practice, right? It's a constant practice, and then on the work side, it's like a constant, you're working at it. And it doesn't mean that it has to be drudgery, but it's just the idea that it never ends. And so once we actually acknowledge that and just go forward in that sense of starting to enjoy the journey and make our own lives kind of like this epic saga TV show that never ends, that you want to binge watch yourself and your own development, I think that's really what we're striving for. So as far as like the personal work and the spiritual development categories, there's so many different pieces to it, right? There's the mind, there's the body, there's the spirit, there's the emotions, there's any kind of traumas that have gone on with that for us individually, and then also there's all these collective energies too that if you're empathic you might take on and move through. There's the ancestral pieces, there's past life pieces, again there's the collective healing pieces, and any birth trauma, early childhood trauma, teenage or adulthood trauma. So there's a lot. So those are some, actually just some of the categories that we have that we can look at, right? That's like, okay, let me look at ancestral healing. Let me look at my early childhood, inner child stuff, right? So you can kind of look through these particular lenses, because I think that's another really good step as well, because it can get so overwhelming. It's like, okay, well, let me just dive in to the ancestral stuff for a while. knowing that I want to also get out of it and complete it, because I can see that a lot of people like stay in the soup for a really long time, and it's like, no, I'm going in with the intention of healing and bringing wholeness, and then I'm completing it and coming back to center and pursuing this next level of development and looking at ourselves. So it's really important to do that too. So you can start with certain categories and then pursue those, work through those, and then move on to another one. And then it's very important while doing all this, because those are more like the spiritual energetic practices, but there's, then beliefs, expressing yourself, like fully living your mission, having positive relationships, like all of those kinds of categories, and then the health and the body, so which is more on like the, say, personal work, personal development side of things, which is a whole other category. And sometimes we don't blend those two. That's why I started with that, is we stay kind of over here on the spiritual development category, but we might not go into that personal work category, where people stay in the personal work category, but they don't look at maybe the energetic stuff going on, which can be very, very helpful to complementing each other, to helping each other. So when you're doing this over here, you can take it over to the personal work. When you're doing this over here, you can take it to the spiritual development. And that's really important. And in a way, I guess you could kind of think about it as like the development of the mind and the will and the personal development category, personal work category. And then in the spiritual development, it's like the heart and the energy, right? But we need both. It's very important to have both to fully be a holistic being. So this is just a little snapshot of ways that you can accelerate your spiritual development as well as your personal work, and getting a little bit more understanding of what doing your work is, what doing your personal work is, because it's pretty much fully going down every one of these lines, every one of these paths of any level of triggering an imbalance in life to come back to wholeness, which is a lot, and it's a journey and it never ends. But translating it into something fun is very, very helpful. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. Comment below to let me know what your best personal work and spiritual development tips are, so that we can understand them together, so that we can see how each other do it. And I think that that's the most important thing, is like, well, what's worked for you? So that we don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel and do stuff for a long time. We can just expedite the whole thing, right? So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I would love for you to like and subscribe this video. And also, when you subscribe, click the bell button so you get notifications every time I do new videos. Be sure to check me out on Instagram for more daily updates, and I will see you every Tuesday with another video. Thanks so much for watching and doing your work. Helps everyone. So thanks.